Hello, namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. To become a subscriber, all you have to do is to press that red button on your screen. Subscription is, of course, completely free. All right. When a person thinks that he is on the top, when the whole world, as it were, is lying in front of him, when nothing can go wrong for him, and that's the point, I think, when that person is the most vulnerable. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Pakistan's Field Marshal Asim Munir. Munir actually, let's face it, and let's also admit that he has a lot of things which are going in his favor at the moment. I have outlined three aspects of Munir, which you can call them some kind of a success, which he has tasted, which are going well for him. Let me first outline those three things and then explain that at the point where he thinks that he is infallible, nothing can go wrong, that he's Teflon coated, nothing can touch him. That's the point where he is most vulnerable. And I have a feeling that Asim Munir knows this. And that is why I'm arguing in this podcast that Pakistan might actually, under Asim Munir, might be contemplating a short land war against India in the month of December. Why would Pakistan, why would Asim Munir even be thinking on these lines? Why would such a precipitate action be taken if they take this action? What are the reasons for that? What is the background to all this? I will explain all this in today's podcast. But first, let me give you my analysis of what ostensibly or on the surface, you could say, what's actually going right for Asim Munir. Now, the first thing, number one, Operation Sindoor 1.0. The fact of the matter is that we won Operation Sindoor fair and square. It was a complete victory for India. But we lost the narrative war. Now that's very, very clear. There's no dispute about it. It's not only my analysis, but number of people have analyzed that we actually lost the narrative war to Pakistan. Now, whether they did it through AI, through subterfuge, with the help of the Chinese or Western intelligence agencies or the Western media, I mean, there can be a lot of excuses, but the fact is we not lost the narrative war. But I'm not getting into that. Let's for the moment let's keep this particular point in our mind that yes, we won the military battle, but we lost the narrative war, which Asim Munir turned as a feather in his cap when he tom-tommed and he went around the world as it were on some kind of a victory parade, selling the idea that he had pushed back the Indians and that he had knocked out some of our rafales. That narrative, of course, is what you are already familiar with. So that's the first part of it. The second feather in his cap, or the second success which Asim Munir has met, is that no question about it, he's got the Western support with him. During Operation Sindoor, it's now very, very clear that the US, to that extent, is giving him a lot of support, even some of the Western countries. But more important than that, he got Western media support. If you look very, very closely, some of the wire agencies in the Western world, the two biggest are Reuters and Bloomsbury. These agencies almost picked up channels like Al Jazeera. They picked up the Pakistani fictionalized narrative, and then this narrative was accepted gleefully, I would say, by so many channels like BBC, France 24, CNN, you name it, just about every Western channel. The entire Western media and everybody, spoke in terms of that Indian Rafales were knocked out and Pakistan had scored some brownie points over India during Operation Sindoor. So that was, in a certain sense, some kind of a tactical narrative victory which Asim Munir achieved. So let's also acknowledge that particular fact. The third important thing, which is not being talked about, but which is also very significant, is that there was a meeting between Asim Munir and MBS of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, where Asim Munir has told Salman that the way he dealt with India, or the way he came on top of India in this short conflict, he was prepared to do something similar in terms of addressing the situation in favor of Saudi Arabia in Gaza. And that is why this proposal of 20,000 Pakistani soldiers in Gaza, which you all now have been actually literally $500 per soldier is going, that's a going rate in those parts. But he sold this idea that his soldiers could go, his people could go to Gaza, and not only to Gaza, but also to protect Saudi Arabia from Yemeni's attacks. The point which I'm making is that the third so called feather in his cap was also the fact that he got Saudi Arabia on his side post Operation Sindoor. And then, of course, it's now in the public domain, the support of countries like Turkey, the support of Azerbaijan, these countries also. So, in a certain sense, what Asim Munir did really was that he stitched up his own support base after post Operation Sindoor, with, of course, the biggest support coming for him from the United States. And, of course, the US has, of course, different interests in Pakistan, or rather in Balochistan. They want those critical rare earth minerals. They are looking at other mineral components in that part of the world. But the fact is, the US support for him was there. But something also very significant also happened in the last 3 or 4 days, which buttresses this point that the US is supporting Pakistan in these endeavors. There was a report which has come out, and the report is called the US China Economic and Security Review Commission, or the USCCC report. It's almost an 800-page report. It primarily, of course, deals with the US China relationship, what's going on between the two countries. This report is actually supposed to be filed by an independent commission, but it is practically like an arm of the US government. And this report will be tabled in front of Congress, the US Congress. But what is significant from India's point of view is there are a few mentions of Operation Sindoor in the report. There are 2 or 3 assertions which are made in the report, which at the face of it are contradictory. There is this suggestion, or there is rather this imputation in the report that the Chinese fabricated some of the evidence of airplanes crashing, Indian airplanes crashing, photos and images and all that. The report also argues that really it was a test not so much for Pakistani military hardware, but for Chinese military hardware to shine in battle against the Indians. This is what the report is saying, which in a way is trying to impute or give the idea that the Chinese are testing grounds out there, that the effectiveness of the military hardware, and also the fact that the military hardware was superior, and therefore it can be used as exports to different countries. That was the Chinese point of view. This would all have been fine and could have been in favor of India till there was a mention which was made, which is a very, very damaging assessment. I don't know who made that assessment in this report, but I'm going to quote that exact line which was made in the report. And that I'm quoting from that particular report. Quote begins: Pakistan's military success over India in its 4-day clash showcased Chinese weaponry. Now, this is mentioned in that report, which means, what does it mean? It literally means that the US is accepting the Pakistani position, that they scored some kind of military victories over India. Now, whether it is part of a larger US game plan in terms of balancing things or putting pressure on India because of trade talks, because of the tariffs issue, all that, we can argue about all that. Fair enough. But it is still a very damaging assessment. It should not have been there in this report. And I can't recall in previous reports or in previous encounters between India and Pakistan that the US has gone this far to put forward its position in this particular manner. But it's there. So in that, purely from that point of view, as I said, the podcast is not so much about the US, it's about Asim Munir and Pakistan. So purely from that point of view, that if some mention like this comes in a quasi-official report, which is absolutely going to go to the US Congress, then it is a bit of a feather in Asim Munir's cap. So if you look at, if you assess, and if you kind of the all the 4 points which you have made, then Asim Munir, well, he is pleased that he has scored some tactical victories. He has stitched up an alliance, an anti-India alliance. The world's only superpower, the biggest power in the world, the United States, is ostensibly, at least till now, is on his side. So Asim Munir would be pleased. But is he? That's the question which I'm asking this podcast. And I have a feeling that he is extremely nervous. He is extremely anxious. There are a lot of things which are happening under the ground, and he knows about it. And I'm arguing in this podcast that could be the reason to divert attention to achieve some other strategic gains. He might go for a short land war against India in December. And why in December? I'll also tell you the reasons for that. Now, the question, therefore, that begs the question that what could be going wrong for Asim Munir? If this is the, on the surface, the so-called victories of Asim Munir, then what is really actually happening on the ground in Pakistan, which is making him so anxious, which is that he is being forced to contemplate in terms of action against, or at least to try and stir up problems for in the India-Pakistan situation. Now, what is really happening is this in Pakistan. Pakistan, quite literally, in reality, if we forget about all this bluff and bluster and all this AI generated fake imagery, which Pakistan, of course, excels in, and which the Western media, some Western countries willingly have brought into, have accepted. If you ignore all that for a moment, the reality is Pakistan, and mark my words, is literally coming apart at the seams. That is what is really, really going on in Pakistan. It is actually in a process of self destruction. And Asim Munir knows it. Asim Munir is completely aware of this. And of course, let's go it one by one, starting from the Afghanistan situation. Now it appears that Afghanistan, the relation between Afghanistan and Pakistan are in a state of terminal decline. There's a complete cleavage, a split which has occurred between both the countries. The Taliban cannot see eye to eye with Pakistan. It's absolutely clear. And what does it mean strategically? It means that Afghanistan no longer respects the so-called Durand line that bifurcates Afghanistan with Pakistan. And then, of course, the other player in the entire equation, the TTP, that is the Tehreek-e-Taliban, that also is actually or almost in lockstep with the Taliban. It is, of course, opposed to the Pakistani government. And the divorce between the two countries is almost complete now because if you listen to some of the voices which are emerging from Pakistan, the policy analysts, the security analysts, and all these other voices, they are furious at Afghanistan. They are actually goading the government to, how dare that Afghanistan, behave like this with us? We are a nuclear power. Action should be taken against Afghanistan. I mean, that kind of rhetoric is going on a daily basis. And on the ground, the situation is terrible. But on top of that, Pakistani forces are being killed literally every day in these clashes between the Taliban and the Pakistani army. And the same situation prevails to that extent in Balochistan. Not a day passes when some Pakistani soldier or outpost or post or troops being ferried in trains across the Balochistan frontier, they are not attacked. Many soldiers are being lost on that particular zone also. So, in that sense, these big regions of Pakistan are literally being torn apart at the seams. There is, of course, unrest in Pakistan occupied Kashmir also. There is unrest in even in the Sindh province, and to top it all, Asim Munir, to let's face it, is currently quite popular in Pakistan. But to say that the popularity of Imran Khan, easily the most popular politician in Pakistan, has ebbed away is also not correct. Imran Khan still remains a very, very popular leader. And in Punjab, which is the main which is the heartland, which is the Punjabi army really is, foisted on these Punjabi uh, military officers. So Imran Khan is not, he might be in prison, but his popularity is not going away anywhere. It's not diminishing. Yes, Asim Munir also is popular. Let's face facts. We have to acknowledge to what is reality, the reality, what is going on. Because of these false, fake narratives which Asim Munir has built for himself. So that is what I call a very dangerous situation for Pakistan. That's the first part of it. Then the other thing which is going to hit Pakistan very, very soon, and for some odd reason, not too much is being talked about it, but I think we need to mention that, and that could be the water crisis in Pakistan. Of course, precipitated by India's tough stand that we have, as technically we have put the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, but literally what we are saying is we don't respect that treaty. That treaty is dead and buried as far as India is concerned. And believe you me, it's a matter of time now, 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, that once those structures which India has already initiated start coming up along the various tributaries and along the various rivers and the Indus River and all that entire network of rivers in that particular region, and Pakistan is going to literally become a parched land. It's going to be begging for water, and that is a great worry point. And despite all the bluster of Pakistan that we will nuke you, we will bomb the dams which come up or the structures which come up, we will see whatever happens at that point in time. And by the way, just to give a aside, it is next to impossible to bomb a concretized dam. It's not that easy at all. It's not possible anyway, but that's a different point. The point is the water crisis is going to hit Pakistan very, very soon. That's point number two. And of course, the third point, which I've already alluded to before, Imran Khan remains a force even in captivity. He's like, if some of you might have read Shakespeare's Macbeth. He's like Banquo's ghost, which is there, which will surface again and again to trouble the rulers, the king. Which is Imran Khan. As long as Imran Khan is alive, he will keep on troubling Asim Munir. Nobody even talks about Shehbaz Sharif, the prime minister. He could be like a total non-actor in this entire equation. And then let's talk of the third big problem in Pakistan, which is tearing Pakistani society, which is having far-reaching repercussion. This is the 27th Amendment which they have passed, in which they have almost curtailed the powers of the judiciary, especially of their Supreme Court, and they have made Asim Munir as the chief of the defense forces, the CDS, uh, which means he literally will have oversight on everything possible. He cannot be touched. He has been given immunity even after he retires. He cannot be touched. And obviously, there is resentment which is brewing not only among the judiciary, because two senior judges of their Supreme Court resigned. The names are Justice Mansoor Ali Shah and Justice Athan Minallah. So these two are very, very senior judges. They were known for being taking almost an anti-government line all the time. They were uh, their voices could not be, still. So these two have resigned. It's like a bit of a compliant court. They have set up something called a federal court or something, but it's like we have a collegiate system at our end. It's like their collegiate system has been discarded, and all the nominees of their federal court now will be handpicked by the government, which means that the government, which literally means Asim Munir, would be controlling these courts. He would handpick his people and put them there, and all the judgments or whatever so-called judiciary of Pakistan is would be completely controlled by this man on the top, who would be puppeteering the not only the administrator of the executive and the military, but even the judicial uh, outreach of Pakistan. So that is what is happening, and that obviously has. If there was a liberal opinion in Pakistan, that liberal opinion is up in arms against these decisions. There are a lot of sections of Imran Khan's party which are absolutely opposed to this decision. And therefore, on all these parameters, and then let's not forget, Pakistan will always be 1 foot away from FATF if they go into that gray zone. They could also, despite the backing of certain Western powers. And end of the day, Pakistan actually has no money. Let's not forget that. It's surviving on the arms. It is surviving on the largest of even today of countries like Saudi Arabia, of the munificence of China and all these other countries. It has no money of its own. It has no oil, despite all these tall talk of oil fields and everything, diamonds and gold and rare minerals in Balochistan and etc. etc. All that is tall talk at the moment. They actually have no money. Their economy is not going anywhere. The per capita income of Pakistan is going down by the day. And in this in this seething cauldron, as it were, Asim Munir now steps in with the 27th Amendment. He makes himself all powerful. He spins the entire fake narrative of that I have achieved great success in Operation Sindoor. And um he's banking on countries like the US, Turkey, all these countries to come to his support. This is what is really going on. But the ground is shifting under his feet, and that is why I'm arguing. And I'll tell you the reasons why he would go for a land war, a short land war with India. Now, there are a couple of things we need to understand out here. Pakistan is certainly no match militarily, or in terms of intent, or in terms of uh, military superiority with India. But the fact is, Pakistan can create problems. And why can they create problems? Because despite being having a rundown, religiously inclined mullah army, whatever you want to call it, where professionalism has really gone out of the window, but the religion aspect is far more important to the military out there. Despite all that, it's still a very large army. They have a strength of almost 6,60,000 troops plus reserves, which are over 5,50,000 troops. That's a lot of manpower. That's a lot of manpower. So we share this exceedingly long border with Pakistan. Now, if when I mention a land war, I have to explain this entire thing. A land war, not in the sense that Pakistan is trying to kind of, push all its assets at one go. The strategy would be that Pakistan would, in overwhelming numbers, would attack a particular point along the border where maybe our strength is a little diminished or reduced, or maybe it's not there, and try and occupy a tract of land or a piece of land. That is all that Asim Munir would be planning to do. Because what would he achieve by that? Supposing he is calculating that if there is a land war, it lasts for 72 hours to maybe maximum a week or something, and he somehow can grab some piece of territory, because what he's really banking upon is the United States would step in and intercede on his behalf and stop the war any which way. That is his game plan. And of course, some of his other, the support from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia, maybe from Iran also, who knows, from Turkey certainly, from all these Azerbaijan, Central Asia, some other countries there, and then he would be in a comfortable position, and then the US would intervene and said that no, we have to stop this war, come what may. He's banking upon that, and therefore he might go in for this action to get out of his troubles. Because assuming, and think in your mind, if he realizes his objective, if it's possible for him to realize his objective, which is not possible, but if he does by some by act of by fate or something or whatever, then he would for the rest of his life tom that he has achieved this great military victory. And that is why I'm saying Asim Munir is actually Musharraf number two. This is what Musharraf also tried. Musharraf also thought he was very powerful. He could ignore the executive or the parliamentary system in Pakistan. And he decided to do a Kargil completely on his own. And that is what I'm saying, that this is what Asim Munir could try and do, is to there's a word called PUTSCH, that he could try and ingress at some point in on the Indian side, occupy maybe some bit of territory, and tom it to the whole world that he's achieved this so-called victory. Because then the Pakistani fake factory of AI and concocted videos which they did in Operation Sindoor would work overtime to tom his victory, with of course added support of the Western media, because the Western media certainly doesn't like present day India. And therefore, they look for opportunities to deride India, to go after India. And therefore, they would certainly happily buy this narrative. That's the game plan. And also remember one final thing which we need to keep in mind is there's a particular thing about dictators. There's a particular mentality of dictators when these people, when they think they are on the top, then they start in their own minds reimagining their power. If their power is, let's say, 1x, then they think that their power is actually 5x, because in their mind, because they only have people who support them, or who जिसे हिंदी में कहते हैं उनकी वाहवाही करते रहते हैं. They just keep on building them up that you are the greatest, you are the greatest. And therefore, I have a feeling Asim Munir is now surrounded himself with people who just have given him this version of that you are maybe Allah's representative on earth, and therefore you can do anything vis-a-vis India. You can achieve the impossible, that you can actually defeat India, which no Pakistani has ever been able to do in any conflict with India. So this is what he imagines. And therefore, let's not also at the same time forget the fact that Asam Munir also, besides being maybe a little delusional, besides having these fancy strategies which he has in his mind, he's also a very cunning man. Because give it to him, there is one thing which he has certainly achieved is that by bluff, or by in good old हिंदी में जिसको हम कहते हैं चमचागिरी, or buttering things up in Washington, whichever way he's done it. But the fact of the matter is there is a tangible US support to Pakistan right now. He has been able to achieve that. That actually to that extent goes to this man's credit. But this is also the danger bells are tolling for him at the same time, because all this is resting on a fake narrative. This entire fake thing narrative is resting on a fake narrative. And if these are the plans, and why am I saying he would carry out these plans in December? And the reason is very, very simple. There are two reasons. December, by the way, is the ideal month in the subcontinent to actually have a land war, because of the winter conditions. The ground hardens. It's easy for armored carriers. It is easy for tanks. It is easy for the armored corps to make rapid movements. The ground is not slush. That's the biggest reason. We need to remember some of the ravines, some of the natural obstacles, they dry up. So easy for troops to move back and forth. That's the first part. And the second part is that I have a strong feeling that he will try something around President Putin's visit to India. Because the world's attention is going to be focused on this meeting of President Putin with our Prime Minister, and he would try something, certainly something internally also, through all the proxies and all the terror cells which are thriving in India. They are thriving, and I'm using this definitely because of Pakistan, but certainly some kind of an external aggression also, probably, as I said, a land grab, or a land kind of a seizure kind of a move he could be making. In some part, there's a possibility of that. And therefore, when we keep thinking out here that we will launch Operation Sindhu 2.0, we need to be very careful of the fact that it could actually be Pakistan which could initiate trouble actually on the land front. They have no match on the Navy, on the Air Force. We could hammer them any day. But the fact is, they have a sizable number of forces, and therefore they can create some kind of a problem. And therefore, the threat, if it comes, could actually come through the land route. So these are all the interesting permutations and combinations which are taking place right now in the India-Pakistan scenario. It's a time for huge challenges from our point of view, also. It's a time to be very, very careful, cautious, not be foolhardy. It's also a time where Pakistan needs to be hammered, but at the right time, at the right place, at the time and choosing of India. That's what India says, and that's absolutely correct. Not go into something foolhardy to assess what this man is thinking, because if nothing else, Asim Munir is not only a troublemaker, but he's a very, very cunning man. He's not a brave man. Let me tell you that. Because there were reports which are coming in when Operation Sindhur 1.0 was going on. Shehbaz Hariri at least was swimming in a swimming pool at his home. But this man had gone incognito. He was probably in a bunker somewhere, hiding, protecting his hide. So he's not a brave man at all, but he is definitely a very cunning man. Give it to him. One of the most cunning generals ever to take over Pakistan, but that's their problem. We, on our part, need to be cautious that these are moves which could be in the making. They could be directed against India. So it's a story which we have to watch out for. It's a time of great caution, challenge, but it's also a time to be brave and a time eventually at some point or the other to take the fight into the enemy camp, which means Operation Sindhu 2.0 at some point or the other. And so on this note, I come to the end of this podcast. I hope you really liked it. If you like the show, do subscribe to us. And on this note, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.